guys, so this is gonna be a different video. I have recently been going through our basement and just kind of like doing spring cleaning in the middle of summer. I don't know why, but this video kind of came to me just because I feel the need to walk down memory lane. These are all childhood books, and I kind of personally love seeing what people read when they were younger. I love going through all of my older books because they're super nostalgic for me. I just want to give you a glimpse on what my reading history was like as a child and as a young teen. Clearly, I didn't really leave the young adult world, but these are like some classics right here. This is like vintage Chelsea. Ooh, that made me sound really old. Okay, this is like childhood Chelsea. I'm not that old, I swear. But I somehow managed to narrow 6 full totes down to 2 just by reorganizing and starting to unhaul a lot of stuff, and these are what I could not part with. This is literally just my childhood in 2 bins, and I'm gonna share it with you guys. Okay, we're gonna get into this bin first. I don't actually have any of my like picture books. Those I think are mostly still with my parents at their house because my mom likes them as well. Some of my favorites were Stella Luna, Where the Wild Things Are, and Harvey Potter's Balloon Farm. That's pretty much like picture book Chelsea in a nutshell, those 3 books. So getting into here, this is more like beginner chapter books, and you'll notice a theme. It'll go very fast, I promise. But first of all, I'm going to set the mood of the 90s for you guys. For any of you who are younger, this may not be a super relevant video for you guys, but most of you guys I think are around my age, or at least in your 20s, so you understand the 90s. And you'll understand these. These are Beanie Baby handbooks. This just defines the 90s for me. There you go. Also gonna set the tone with some bookmarks. If that doesn't scream 90s to you, I don't know what does. It is neon geometric colors with smiley faces and sunglasses, and a holographic owl bookmark. Where the rest of my childhood bookmarks are, I don't know, but I feel like this is a fairly good representation of what they looked like. It was either holographic, because holographic was brand new and exciting, so the amount of like animal holographic bookmarks I have is kind of ridiculous, or it was like the epitome of like 90s graphic design. Just like bright colors, geometric shapes, and block lettering. Now that the tone is set, we're gonna start very far back, like right after picture books, basically. If anybody remembers these, the Serendipity books, like it has the little dragon on the back, but they were all just like these are like the old school ones, like Knitter Pitter and Dragolin are some old ones. These were published in 1978, and they still have like our family's book stamp in it. It says the Palmers, and it's back when you wrote your name in the actual book, but these basically are the most adorable, wholesome little like in-between chapter and picture books, and they just have like the cutest little illustrations in them. I can't handle it. They all basically have a very strong moral of the story. I'm pretty sure Memily is how I got my love of giraffes, and Knitter Pitter and Flutterby are where I started my love of horses. No, I think my love of horses started like in the womb or something. I even have like the moral of the story printed on here, where it's like vanity can cost you friends, just be who you are. Just, oh my god, these are so cute. Did any of you guys have these? Because these are the precious things. Moving into the very few non-horse books that I have to show you, I was obsessed with these. These are the Bailey School Kids. So I don't know if any of you guys read these, but these are like vampires don't wear polka dots, werewolves don't go to summer camp, and it pretty much just follows any sort of like paranormal creature, like ghosts don't eat potato chips, and they were just adorable little kids stories, and I devoured these. Witches don't do backflips. I loved these. In that same timeline, did any of you guys read the Littles series? It's about a little tiny family of like kind of human mice hybrids. I don't know, they were like little tiny like this big people who had tails, but they just went on really big adventures, like they rode animals and everything. Did anyone else read these? I love these. Okay, and flashing back to serious 90s sitcoms, children's television. Does anybody remember Wishbone? Wishbone was my jam. Wishbone was on PBS because cable didn't really exist back then. Wishbone was a little Jack Russell Terrier who went on adventures with his owner Joe and basically solved mysteries. But all of the episodes of Wishbone basically were kind of a retelling of classic literature. I vividly remember the Time Machine one and the Don Quixote episodes. but I basically could not get enough of Wishbone. Like, I have so many of these books and I'm not getting rid of them. Are you crazy? This is like classic Chelsea literature right here. Also, touching on something that is super nostalgic for everybody, I'm pretty sure anybody who was a reader in the 90s, or even still is, because I'm pretty sure they still are around and are really still being read, are some Goosebumps. I have this one scared the hell out of me. The Night of the Living Dummy ones, oh man, I hated them. The Haunted Mask, Let's Get Invisible, How I Got My Shrunken Head, Be Careful What You Wish For. I'm pretty sure my brother has the other half of these because we had so many Goosebump books. Like, it's not even funny how many Goosebumps we had. So this is getting slightly more into the more like mature childhood aspect because I could handle slightly scary horror stories designed for children. So I basically read those and Animorphs. I don't have Animorphs. I think my brother has those too. But those were kind of the extent of the non-animal related books that I read. Now, getting into the true Chelsea history, basically if it didn't have an animal on it, let alone have a horse on it, I wasn't gonna read it. So that leads me to some pony pals. Are there any horse girls out there? Because this was literally my childhood. These books were the most exciting things in the world to me. I'm pretty sure my very first AOL screen name, yeah, we're going all the way back to the 90s, was Acorn something something something, because Acorn was my favorite pony from this. Okay, that's the level of obsessed I was with this. I wanted to be these girls so bad. This was like horse girl dream. Like, you just had 3 best friends, you all 3 had your own little ponies that you kept at your house, and you could ride to each other's houses and go on little horse adventures. I loved these books. They came with little trading cards in them. I still have them in a photo album somewhere in this house. I love these books so much. In that same vein, I have the Ponytails books. Those existed. Of course, a whole bunch of Saddle Club books, because hello, you have to have those as a horse kid. I have tons and tons of the Margaret Henry books. She wrote Misty of Chincoteague and Justin Morgan Had a Horse. Basically all of the like classic horse literature. I own like all of them. I own multiple editions of all of them. It's not even funny. Also, all of the Black Stallion and the Young Black Stallion books were my jam. I don't have them out here right now because I think they're in a favorites bin downstairs, but the Heartland books and the Thoroughbred series, I probably have an entire bin of just those books alone. Should I donate these somewhere? Probably, but I just can't do it. These are like my childhood. If it had a horse on the cover, I was gonna read it. If it had a dog or a cat or an animal on the cover. Speaking of which, did anyone else read the Animal Arc books, like Kittens in the Kitchen, Pony on the Porch, Puppies in the Pantry, Hedgehogs in the Hall? Animal stuff was what I read, basically. Like, the very few books that I listed at the beginning, and then horses and other animal books. I was slightly obsessed with animals as a kid. Should I be a veterinarian now? Probably, but I'm not. I'm just talking about all of the animal books I read. Oh my god, I just found a couple books I have to share with you guys. So I was really, really young, but the Babysitter's Little Sister books, I love these. And same with the Sweet Valley Kids books. Like, the Sweet Valley High books were kind of dated when I was a kid because those were more like late 80s series, but they came out with the Sweet Valley Kids in the 90s and I devoured them. They were so good. Okay, moving into this bin, we are getting more into preteen Chelsea, and you will start to see my taste develop beyond horses, I promise. This isn't just a whole bunch of horse books. I still was reading them at that point, but I had moved on. If you can tell what these are, I'll show you a little clip of these. So these are the Fearless series. This is pretty much middle school for me. This series, have any of you guys read this? It's by Francine Pascal. This was about a girl who was born without the fear gene, and she's trained basically to be like this kick-ass martial arts assassin type person. I clearly read them a lot, so I had clearly branched out from horses just a little bit, just a tad. Okay, do you guys recognize this series? This kind of was coming out middle school to high school for me, so I was probably a little too old for the age range when these were coming out, but I devoured them. This is the series of Unfortunate Events books, and I love them. Honestly, going back now, I could probably sit down and still enjoy these. The writing in this is just my first introduction to humor in writing, and the writing is just hilarious. And also, I remember my friends and I being obsessed with Lemony Snicket because we all knew it was a pseudonym, and his dedications to Beatrice kind of was an ongoing mystery in the whole series. We just spent afternoons just discussing what was going to happen if he ended up being in the series. It was just, I love this series so much. Moving into another series that I just devoured. Do you guys recognize these books? These are the Daughters of the Moon series by Lin Ewing. I loved these books. I still have the full set. There, I think, is a spin-off series of the guys from this, but I think this follows 4 girls and each book rotates a perspective that you're following, and I love these books so much. Moving into the very first series that I ever binge read, the Sweep series by Kate Tiernan. These books, they were just so good. Looking at these covers now, oh my god, they're so 90s, but I devoured these books. This is the first time that I remember reading books that I just could not get enough of. This is the first series that I ever went to the bookstore and bought 4 at once and just read for the whole afternoon. I remember my dad coming into my room, looking up at me on my top bunk of my bunk bed, hello 90s, and just rolling his eyes at me because I was so obsessed with this series. So I know a bunch of you have actually read this series. This series still holds up. This is still a really solid YA series, and I believe they have re-released them with different covers and different bind-up versions. I still recommend this series and anything by Kate Tiernan. She's one of my first favorite authors of all time. And at this point in my childhood, we were also experiencing Harry Potter. I don't need to show you guys Harry Potter, but this is about the same timeline that we are in. But this is also the same timeline that I discovered vampire books. This is pre-Twilight, this is pre-paranormal romance, and I discovered Amelia Atwater Rhodes. First book I read by her was Demon in My View, and she was such an inspiration to me. There was Midnight Predator, Shattered Mirror, Hawk Song. She is still writing books currently, and she was such an inspiration to me because she started writing these books when she was 15. And it blew my mind that she could write books like this as a 15-year-old when I was also kind of a preteen at the time. But this basically opened my eyes up to vampires, and I am not ashamed to admit the fact that I still love vampire books. I love them. It's sexy, it's appealing. As an adult, you can kind of look at why you were so into them as kids because it's kind of like a power balance. It's a sexy type of story. So of course you're going to be intrigued in your adolescent years when you're going through hormonal changes and you're like, oh man, sexy guys in books, you're going to read them. But I read so many of them. I have the Silver Kiss, I have the Vampire Kisses box set still, Companions of the Night. I'm pretty sure I still have a whole box of these floating around somewhere. But before Twilight came out, I can confidently say that I read every single vampire story that was in the actual teen section of Barnes & Noble, and then Twilight hit, and it kind of excited me because it made a lot of vampire stories come out, but it also kind of disappointed me because it made them extremely mainstream and it made a lot of the stories not that good. So that's basically bringing us up to the Twilight phenomenon, and we basically know where the reading trends went from there. So we went from Twilight to like the Hunger Games to the Shadowhunter series, and that leads us up to present day. So I feel like most of us are pretty caught up, but I just wanted to walk you through my reading journey. I have always been a reader, if you can't tell. My parents read to me as a baby. I learned to read very, very early, and I was reading picture books religiously. Like, I remember going to the library with like a tote bag and just checking out stacks of picture books, and then exciting times when I graduated to chapter books. And basically, I have always been a reader. I know a lot of people have tags and just introduction videos of like what got you into your love of reading. For me, it's always been present. This is pretty much what got me through everything. I was obsessed with horses as a kid, but I clearly couldn't own a horse as a kid. Like, we couldn't afford to own a horse for me, so I lived vicariously through the girls in the books who got to go on all sorts of pony adventures. And that was basically me up until my preteen years when I finally started to branch out and read things other than horse related. Let's be real, I still read horse books, but they are not as frequent and they don't release nearly as often as they do for kids. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If any of you recognized any of these books, let me know down in the comments. I just enjoyed going through all of these bins and just kind of reminiscing about memories of reading as a kid. And this was essentially it. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you guys in my next one.